This is the Mets Postcast, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The New York Mets have their biggest comeback of the season as they rally from 4 runs down in the 8th inning, and they take the opener of this series from the Baltimore Orioles by a final score of 7-6. Welcome into the Mets Postcast here, the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. Your Postcast host, Chris Schubert, here with you after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. Yes, back from a brief summer vacation. We'll see. We can dust off the cobwebs, see if we can remember how to do this. It is so much fun to be back, and glad that it is a Mets victory that I get to come back to, because I was definitely worrying there in those later innings that I was going to be called the jinx if I came back and the Mets suffered a loss here in the opener of the series against the Baltimore Orioles. So just for my sanity, good to be back and good to have a Mets victory to discuss. Let's get into it. Pretty simple, the story in this one, and it starts with those guys at the top of the lineup.
This is what you'll be talking about.
The Mets have a big 4 to their team right now. All the questions that we have about the bottom part of their lineup, really 5 through 9 in their lineup, we don't have questions about the top 4 in this lineup. And as those guys go, this Mets team goes. And last time I was here doing one of these postcasts with you, Francisco Lindor was still the leadoff hitter for this team. So my first chance to really discuss this new look lineup with Nimmo in the leadoff spot, Lindor hitting in the 2-hole, then Soto and Alonso. And this to me feels like the perfect example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Continue to put those 4 guys at the top of the lineup every single day. I have a running bit with friends, right? When we talk about sports, we talk about takes and things that we have. We say, put it in Sharpie, pen, or pencil. Pencil, you're not really sure about it. Sharpie, you're positive. Take it to the bank. It's a lock. Put this in Sharpie. Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso. Don't care who's on the mound. Don't care who the Mets are facing. Those 4 guys need to be put at the top of the lineup, and you saw it today why that was the case. Brandon Nimmo, 2 for 5. Lindor, 1 for 5, but the most important hit potentially of the game, sparking the comeback there in the 8th. Soto with 3 hits, including the go-ahead single there in the 10th. Alonso, 2 for 4 with a home run. Doing some quick math here on the fly, 8 of the Mets' 11 hits came from those 4 guys. 6 of the Mets' 7 runs batted in came from those 4 guys. As these guys go, the Mets go. You got a big home run from Lindor, a big home run from Pete, who now is just, 5 home runs away from tying Darryl Strawberry, 6 away from being the Mets' all-time franchise home run leader. And you just love to see the resiliency from this group. I think this was the thing that was missing when the Mets were struggling towards the tail half of the month of June, something we were talking about over and over again. It just didn't feel like the fight was there from the New York Mets. It didn't feel like they had that ability to punch back. Felt like they were fighting themselves. Well, tonight they had that bounce back. They had that counter, and they got to this Orioles bullpen, a 4 spot in the 8th, and they got it done there in the 10th. A little nervous that they only scored the 1 there in the 10th after having it set up 2nd and 3rd and 1 out, and then the bases get loaded on the intentional walk. They're not able to draw in any insurance runs. Unfortunate that they couldn't tack on and give Huascar Brazaman a little bit more comfort. But these are those types of games that when you look back on a season, you'll remember if the Mets have a serious run. I know many of us can go chapter and verse about games that we remember from 2024, right? The run that the Mets went on, we can pick and choose moments and games and just things that happened over the course of the season that are committed to memory. And that's because the Mets went on a miracle run, 2 wins away from going to the World Series. We had so much fun along that journey. If the Mets have that type of run once again in August and September, I think you're going to remember this type of game. You're going to remember a big comeback on the road right before the All-Star break in Baltimore against a team that, let's face it, isn't playing up to their standard and where they expected to be this season. And this is the reason why, because of games like this. And so the Mets took full advantage, stayed in this game, even though they were down 4. And again, it was a gut punch. This was a seesaw game in this one. And maybe we'll hop into that here. It was the 6th inning where things really kind of kicked off as the Mets, facing a 1-0 deficit, just coming off of an immaculate inning from Brandon Young for the Orioles. The Mets go down on 9 pitches, 3 strikeouts. just uncompetitive at bats there. You're starting to get worried. Well, in the 6th inning, the Mets find a way. Mauricio hits a home run to tie it. Nimmo hits a double as the Mets have 3 consecutive extra base hits from their 8, 9, and 1 hitters. And in the blink of an eye, after looking very pedestrian there in the 6th inning, they go ahead and get 2 in the top of the 6th, and then they have the lead. You're feeling good about things. You're feeling like here they come. The Orioles left the door open. They didn't take advantage. Clay Holmes kept the Mets close. Now the Mets are going to be able to get out of the 6th, turn it over to a fresh bullpen since they had a day off yesterday, and the Mets are going to find a way to win this opener of the series. Baltimore Orioles said not so fast because it was a 4-run 6th inning for them as the wheels fell off there for Clay Holmes. The final line for him, 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. And we've discussed this many times here on the Postcast when talking about Clay Holmes. My worry about them needing to put somewhat of a limit on him and needing to manage his innings and manage his outings here. And it certainly feels like recently they have been doing that. 90 pitches or 5 innings, one or the other, has felt like it has been the mark for where Carlos Mendoza tries to avoid pushing past with Clay Holmes. Well, tonight he kind of tempted fate a little bit, and I was somewhat surprised considering that the Mets have been cautious as of late with Clay Holmes, that they pushed him as much as they did. No issue starting the 6th inning. His pitch count was low enough to where it makes sense. He had 3 of his first 5 innings where he threw under 15 pitches. So was really keeping a nice pace, was pouring in strikes, was doing a really nice job there in those first 5 innings, and then just kind of hit a wall. Leadoff guy gets on by a hit by pitch. Those always come back to bite you. You can't just let the leadoff guy on with a free pass or a hit by pitch and don't make him earn it. And they left him out there, and Carlos kind of tried to continue to try to find those outs, and it just felt like he waited just a little bit too long. And I know it's a really tough spot, and it's not like the Mets got a ton of great options right now out there in the bullpen. There's some concern about Reed Garrett being very up and down as of late. They've been moving guys back and forth. The first 2 guys in this game, Richard Lovelady and Alex Carrillo, so it's not like the who's who of this Mets bullpen. So I can understand maybe being a little more tentative and wanting to get Clay Holmes through that inning, but it just felt like he was finding himself into trouble. And again, Carlos Mendoza, the one knock I have on him is his ability to determine when to leave a pitcher in, meaning a starter, and when to take that starter out. It feels like he sometimes gets caught in between, not knowing when to pull the plug, when it's the right time, or when to maybe try to steal some outs. It's just not consistent enough for me. And then the Mets facing that deficit down 5-1 at that point. A run in the 7th off of a Jackson Holiday home run was 6-2. You're feeling like the Mets are out of it, but that's when they rallied there in that 8th inning. We still have a lot to discuss here on the Mets Postcast. The other stuff to keep an eye on. We learned what the Mets pitching plans are for the rest of this week. You had a debut here for the Mets with a reliever. We want to talk about that. And yes, we can talk about the bottom of the lineup and 2 players in particular who contributed, but not a whole lot else. So all of that coming here on the other side. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you are all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you are part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about that last time you had a service emergency, like a busted pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you just sit around and wait? No. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. That's why you need OpenPhone. It's the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones to keep business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solves that instantly. Your whole team shares one number and can respond to customers like a shared inbox. There's no more back and forth on who's taking this call, who's answering this one. There's also an AI agent that can handle those after-hour calls, answer common questions, and capture leads so that you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Mets listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have an existing number with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. No missed calls, no missed customers. Open Phone. Back here on the Mets Postcast, Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. Chris Schubert here with you. I think we're doing okay in our return here to the Mets Postcast after taking a little bit of time off here in the summer. Ray says, Chris, your vacation seemed like eons. Trust me. I sat down in the desk today, turned on the Mets game, started to get ready for the Postcast, doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff, having the ad reads ready to go. And I'll tell you, it was like riding a bike. After a little bit, I was okay, but it did take me a little bit to get back into the flow. But glad to hear that you missed me. Ryan did a great job in my absence, having you guys covered daily with the podcast and jumping on here live after the games. But yes, good to be back. Appreciate that I was missed, and good to come back to a Mets victory to discuss. But listen, if we're being honest, we're being transparent, still some concerns about this team, specifically with the bottom part of the lineup. Good to see Brett Beatty have a big day in that 9 spot, 2 for 3 down there. Good to see Ronnie Mauricio hit that home run. You see those flashes. You see those at-bats where it's like, yes, that's the player that the Mets believe in. That's the prospect of Ronnie Mauricio. And there's part of me that just it doesn't feel like he's overmatched at the big league level. It just feels like he is knocking off the rust of not having played baseball and only had a handful of at-bats down in the minor leagues before, because of injury, Vientos going down, he was needed at the big league level. So the rest of that rehab, the rest of those seasoning at-bats, to more than likely get him ready to play a role in 2026 or maybe late in the season this year, that timeline got sped up a little bit. So I don't necessarily worry a ton about Mauricio because you see the power, because you see the bat speed. Played some great defense tonight. You want something to keep an eye on, man. The Mets played some excellent defense tonight. How about that double play? Mauricio turned, stepping on third, making a throw over to first. Pete dragging the toe like he's a football receiver, trying to drag that toe in bounds to complete the catch, keeping that toe on the bag. Luis Torrens with 2 great plays, a strike him out, throw him out double play early, and then the pump fake to get Laureano. And I will tell you, when I saw that play of Ramon Laureano, I don't know if others remember this play, but when I saw Ramon Laureano made a boneheaded play at third base, it reminded me of that game the Mets played against, it was the Braves, I believe, last year, where Laureano got thrown out at third, and then in the bottom part of the inning, Jeff McNeil hit a ball to right field that Laureano overran, and it dropped in, and the Mets won the game on the walk-off. So that was the instant memory that popped into my mind when I saw Laureano make that blunder there on the base pass for the Orioles. And yeah, Baseball Purist says McNeil sliding catch. He had some great plays out there in center field, made a great play at second base as well. Mets played great defense tonight, and that's kind of a David Stern specialty. He wants his teams to play great defense. They certainly did tonight. Great on the base pass. Tyrone Taylor stealing a base, showing you having that weapon off the bench is really nice. Again, issues with this team. You worry a little bit about the bullpen stabilizing, 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position, leaving 8 men on base. I worry about McNeil going 0 for 4, Winker in his return being 0 for 2. Again, that's probably just rust needing to be knocked off at the big league level. I'm not super worried about that. But the Mets just don't have production after their first 4. And so you watch these games and you think to yourself, okay, it's got to come from those 4 guys, because if it doesn't, you just get a little worried. And that's where you need Vientos to break out and stuff to keep an eye on. I thought it was really telling that in a key spot in extra innings that the New York Mets, and this is no knock on Travis Jankowski, and I know it was a left-right matchup, but they decided that it was better to put Jankowski in the game, to lay down a sacrifice bunt, to move the runners over there in the 10th, than it was to let Vientos. Could you imagine if that was the postseason? Could you imagine if that was a game late in the year last year in August and September? Would there even be a consideration to pinch hit for Mark Vientos and to have the person pinch hitting lay down a bunt? Carlos Mendoza wouldn't even think twice about letting Vientos hit in that spot. Just goes to show you the struggles that Mark is going to. Still believe in Mark. Still think he's going to be able to turn things around sooner rather than later, but you got to win the game that's in front of you right now. You can't try to just hope that the next at-bat is the at-bat that allows Vientos to break out. So I thought the right decision in the moment, but just a very telling decision about where Mark Vientos is right now. And you have to start getting worried about a guy who's now hitting 210 and coming back from the injury. He still is having those struggles. Again, still believe in Mark. But at the same time, this Mets team has to focus on 2025. I think Mark is still in the plans for beyond this season, but there's a third baseman out in Arizona who's slugging home runs that could very easily become available and could be the top bat in Eugenio Suarez and would be a free agent at the end of the year. So if you wanted to add pop to the lineup and you wanted to add pop to that third base position, you could do so and not impact your long-term plans. But the Mets have to focus on this year and trying to win as many baseball games as they can. And they had to make that decision tonight to go to Jankowski. So just thought that was a telling moment. Alex Carrillo makes his debut for the New York Mets, goes an inning and a third, does allow the run on the home run to Holiday, just kind of left the fastball middle, but thought the stuff played really well. 98, 99, 100 miles an hour. The slider looked good. The changeup, something that he added this year to the arsenal. So the more flamethrowers the Mets can have out there in that bullpen, the better. We know Stanek can do it. We know Diaz can do it. We know Braziban can do it. Look at Reed Garrett throwing 98 with a little sink, little movement here tonight. So the Mets have some guys that can throw some gas, can throw it with some movement. And you saw it again tonight with Alex Carrillo. Just a really nice debut for him. Again, I know he gave up the earned run on the home run, but didn't walk anybody, had a strikeout. And other than that, was really good. And threw the pitch that Terens did the pump fake on Laureano and got him thrown out at third base. Huascar Braziban picks up his second save. Good on Edwin Diaz to hold things down there in that ninth inning to force things into extra. And then Braziban has the 1-2-3 ninth. Good to be back. Good to celebrate a Mets victory. Now 53-39 on the season. Good to see the fight in the New York Mets. Good to see them battle and rally. Now just a half game back of the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East, playing some good baseball as of late. Winners of 5 of the last 7. Before we get out of here, I want to hear from you here. Hayden says, I'm not upset with the win. Reed scares me. Ronnie had a great defensive night. I'm glad we were swinging the bats because our pitchers are putting it on a tee recently. Yeah, I mean, Reed Garrett has certainly has hit a little bit of a bump in the road. And you certainly worry about that because he has been one of the more trusted high leverage relievers. Mauricio, with the great defensive night, did also hit the home run. And the Mets just need to find more offense. They need to find more length, especially from the bottom part of this group. Baseball purist said, let's hope Vientos takes it personal and hits tomorrow. He certainly did when Lindor was walked. What was that, in the postseason game against the Dodgers to face him? And he hit the grand slam. So he certainly has that swaggy V in there, and hopefully he can tap into it. Certainly feels like it's a confidence issue right now for him in so many ways. And so, unfortunately, I don't know what there is to do other than just try to give him as many at-bats as possible. And if then you start to think that he is really taking it out into the field when you play him at third base, or you just feel like he's not taking quality at-bats, that's when you need to start having the conversation about sending him down to the minors and doing what you did with Francisco Alvarez, just getting him down there to where he can be in a low leverage, not high pressure situation where he can gain his confidence back and come back to the big leagues. Progression isn't linear. I mean, I was guilty of it. I thought this was a big all-star, huge year for him. And I thought he was going to break out. Max says he can't be sent to the minors. Can he? Is he out of options? That's something that I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. If he's out of options, then yeah, he's just going to have to work through it at the big league level. I'll check. I'll pull up Fangraphs right here before we get out of here. We'll close the note on that. Yeah, he is out of options. So if he's out of options, then the Mets are just kind of stuck with him working this out at the big league level. And, putting him in the DH spot certainly is one thing that they can do, so they can take the defensive weight off of him and just have him focus on the bat, because you do worry about him carrying it out there defensively. And with the way Mauricio has been playing, it's been fine defensively out there. So just managing it. And this is where Carlos Mendoza is going to earn his stripes. This is where Carlos Mendoza is going to show how good of a manager he is, how good he has relationships with the players, how he manages this tough situation. Because if he doesn't have options and he can't go down, then they can't do what they're doing with Francisco Alvarez. The only choice they have is to work things out at the big league level. The Mets released their pitching plans for the rest of the week. Kodai Senga looks like he's going to start against Kansas City. And then in Sunday's game, the Mets are going to have Sean Manaea up, and he's going to piggyback off of Clay Holmes. So for the first time this year, the Mets will get to roll out, although in an unorthodox style. They'll get to roll out their projected starting rotation when they all showed up to spring training this year. We'll get our first look of all of that. The Mets, with the win tonight, move to 5-4 in extra innings this season as they take the opener against the Baltimore Orioles. Delayed a little bit because of the rain, but was all good for the New York Mets as they rallied with a 4-run eighth inning, a pair of 2-run homers. First, it was Lindor hitting a 2-run homer. Then it was Alonso joining the party, and the Big Four got it done. Nimmo single, Lindor homer. Soto single, Alonso homer. The Big Four got it done. We are back again tomorrow to break down the Mets against the Baltimore Orioles in the second game of this series. It is David Peterson on the mound, coming off of a good start against the New York Yankees over the weekend. We are right back here to break it all down on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. If you are new here, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you're notified when we go live. You're listening to us in the podcast feed. Come on out and join us live after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. Tip of the cap to you, Ray. Appreciate the welcome back. So the welcome backs from everybody, much appreciated. Glad to know that you all enjoy the work that we do here on the Mets Postcast. It does feel nice to be missed. It also felt nice to come back to a Mets victory. I was keeping tabs on the Mets on vacation, just sitting back, relaxing, enjoying some baseball, and the Mets were playing well, and I was thinking to myself, man, if I come back and the Mets go right back into a little bit of a lull, what are the postcasts going to be like? Am I going to be blamed for this? So good for the Mets to rally the way that they did and show that fight. But we are out of here. We are back again tomorrow to break things down when the Mets take on the Orioles in the second game of this series. Have a good one, Mets fans.